After Indiana goes on the road and does the thing that nobody thought they could do, taking down the Ducks in Eugene, the debate has begun. Are they the best team in college football?
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome in. It is a Locked On College crossover of Hoosiers and the Portal. I'm Jacob Goins, host of Locked On Hoosiers. He is Brian Smith, host of the Portal Podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We appreciate you being with us as we are talking all things Indiana football. Possibly the hottest team in the nation and definitely one of the best in the country. We're talking about that today, plus the recruiting impacts of what Indiana has been up to, Brian, since you're off to an undefeated start, best resume in college football, and a chance to go undefeated. More on that in just a little bit, but people have seemed to already forgotten that Indiana goes on the road and takes down Oregon in Eugene because of the coaching carousel and Cignetti's name being thrown around, but this was one of the best wins of the season for Indiana against Oregon on Saturday.
Yeah, it's the best win program history. And I don't even know what number 2 is, to be honest with you. I'm sure there's a game somewhere that I'm not familiar with, but
Illinois a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, that'd be one of them. They beat Michigan and, a few games like that in their career, but nobody that was ranked like this, especially being in Autzen Stadium. That's really crazy. So my question is now, Indiana earned that win, by the way. There wasn't anything shocking. Like Dante just got taken out of his game, the whole 9 yards. How well does Indiana respond to being the hunted instead of the hunter now? Mm-hmm. Everybody's circling Indiana instead of the other way around. Last year, Indiana put its foot right on the gas whenever they got a turnover, tried to score. Whenever they had an opportunity to bury a team, they did. And it helped them get to 11-1. Well, the back half of this schedule, just the way it fell, Penn State is not what we thought they were. That's the obvious. Grunk Myers, the new quarterback, nobody has any idea. And I think that team will have a few moments, but by and large, that's the only team that's remotely on the same level with them. They should stomp everybody down the stretch before they play Ohio State in the Big Ten title game. Prove me wrong. That's where I'm at with that. So yeah, I think they've earned it based on that's how dominant they were against the Ducks. And by the way, all this is going to look really salivating to all the recruits too. Just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, and we are going to talk recruiting impacts in just a little bit. I want to flip this to Oregon for just a second because nobody's talking about them. Everybody seems to have written them off and, Oregon, whatever. They're fine, but Indiana beat them, so they must not be that great. Their schedule's not all that crazy either, right? They go to Rutgers, home versus Wisconsin, at Iowa, which is a tricky place to play, home versus Minnesota. They then host USC, which could be interesting, and on the road at Washington. I mean, that's a really good Oregon team that Indiana kind of manhandled down the stretch, but they still have every opportunity, Brian, to go and compete for a national title, don't you think?
I would say so. And if Oregon goes 10-2 or 11-1 in the regular season, that just boosts Indiana's strength of schedule. Mm-hmm. And that's ironic considering who Indiana played out of conference, but nonetheless, nobody else is going to Autzen. I forget how many games in a row they won at home, but Indiana's the last one to do it in a long time.
Yeah. That's
going to hold weight. So even if they lose to Ohio State in the Big Ten title game, there's a chance they still get one of the top 4 seeds. It's possible. This is about as good a setup for Indiana as you're going to get.
And it's been a lot of fun the first few days of this week. Sunday was good. Saturday night, of course, with you on Locked On Hoosiers on our live show, just kind of marinating in all of this, right? And soaking it in, but understanding that Indiana has games left to play. You can't get hung up. And I think this is what you were alluding to a little bit earlier was you can't treat that like it's the Super Bowl and the season's over. You still have the back half of the schedule to play. But Indiana proved that if you can win that game, you can easily win the rest of them. And it was in all facets, right? It was the offense. It was the O-line. It was the running game. It was even the kicking game on the road and the defense in the rain. I mean, it was in all areas of the game that Indiana proved, especially comparing to last year, that this is a complete team. Because a year ago, you're right. That team would get up on somebody and be like, man, can't let up now because if we do, we might lose. If we slow down, they may come back and beat us. This team doesn't have that mentality. This team is better than you, and they just flat out know it.
Well, that's the thing. They've got a little swagger. When they had that interception against Oregon, I kind of wondered if they were going to crater. Would have been pretty easy. A lot of teams would have. The next drive, they went down the field. So I think this is a little bit different makeup, and I'm not saying they're all built like Cignetti. He's about as brash and arrogant as it gets, but you need a little bit of that to play in those moments. Like Oregon had to score. IU's back seven was going to be under the gun, and they dominated it. Dante's going to play in the NFL.
Yeah.
He didn't look like it on those drives because he had back-to-back drives that were horrible. Indiana took it to him. This team is, I don't want to say they're significant, but they play like he talks, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, they take his mentality, they take his attitude. And earlier in the week, earlier in previous episodes in the season, off season and things, I've compared Cignetti mindset-wise and mentality-wise to Nick Saban, because he does come from that coaching tree. People forget he was an assistant for Saban at one time. He has that same kind of hard, you know what, and come in, do your work and get out. We're going to play disciplined, and this is how I do things. And I think you see it paying off, right? Because Indiana isn't just a good team. They're a good program now, and it's taken just a year and a half. That's what stands out to me.
I've never seen a turnaround this fast at a
place that was so bad.
You could pick the sport.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not normal to see this kind of stuff. Like in baseball, you got free agency and stuff. It's different because you can literally spend your way to, we got the NIL with the port. It's not quite the same. These are still college kids that are being developed. Pros are still pros. So at the college level, especially, I've never seen anything like this where a team not only turned around, had a chance to go to a major bowl or something, but Indiana's been the laughingstock at the Big Ten for a long time. Now they're at the top of the Big Ten. It's crazy. And they're not doing it with the same kids. Like Jeremiah Smith is not going to take an OB to Indiana. It's just not going to happen. Yeah. Now, all of a sudden, maybe that kind of kid like Manchin Sales, who we'll probably talk about many times over the next year, very possible that he will. And he might be one of the top two receivers in the class of 27. The change that's happened since Curt Cignetti and let's give the whole staff credit, even the back office, everybody, they're all responsible. That is incredible. Somebody needs to write a book on this. Like, literally. I've never seen anything about it. And I follow like recruiting and roster management for a career, and I've never seen anything like this.
A book, a documentary. They're already talking about building the statue, naming the stadium after him. I mean, history is being written right in front of our eyes, and it's because of what the Indiana Hoosiers are doing on the football field. Not in basketball, not in anything else, on the football field, thanks to Curt Cignetti. And that has major impacts across several facets of the game, including recruiting, which we talk about next with our man Brian Smith of the Locked On Portal podcast. I'm Jacob Goins of Locked On Hoosiers. We talk recruiting coming up next. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers and the Portal is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Pick awards than anyone else. And you can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make every everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. And with all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Today's episode is also brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton cross-training tread, plus powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors. This is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. The swivel screen is a game changer. You can go from running on the Tread Plus to strength training without missing a single beat. And the personalized class recommendations keep you engaged. You get workouts tailored to your vibe and energy level each and every week. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. Welcome back into this crossover episode of Locked On Hoosiers and Locked On the Portal. I'm Jacob Goins of Locked On Hoosiers. He is Brian Smith, the host of the Portal Podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. And recruiting is your expertise, Brian. And we've talked a lot over the last year or so about the growing popularity of Indiana in football recruiting, but this was a major spark. This was an explosion for the Indiana Hoosiers. And we can talk specifics, yes, but just from a 30,000-foot view, it's impossible for Indiana football not to grow in the recruiting trail because of your win over Oregon and what you're doing so far.
I'll go ahead and predict they're going to flip somebody that they weren't even in on prior to the season beginning. So not even somebody they didn't finish like top 2 or 3, like somebody's going to be like, you know what, I at least got to visit Indiana.
Sure.
To see what's going on with this. And again, I'm not clarifying any player or from any specific school. It is that random. Mm-hmm. Usually I have a pretty good idea with that stuff.
Yeah.
Right now, man, the door is wide open. I remember they had the kid from Dallas visit recently, the 2027 defensive tackle. That's an elite kid. They never got those kind of kids to visit. And that was before the Oregon ball game. Now that they won in Autzen, I think that pretty much opens the door. And Michigan's down, by the way. They just got hammered by SC. The Midwest is a little easier. Notre Dame and Ohio State are still Notre Dame and Ohio State, but they recruit very nationally. Don't be surprised if it's an Indianapolis kid, a Fort Wayne kid, a Columbus, Ohio kid. They're going to get somebody, maybe even flip somebody from Ohio State or Notre Dame because they think they come to Indiana and play earlier and still be on a great team.
Yeah.
Anything is open. I've never even thought about those things, let alone set them on a podcast that's going to be recorded and disseminated for the rest of my life. It's wild because I didn't think Indiana would ever be good at football, period.
Yeah. Look how far we've come in just a short amount of time. Remember when Julian Lewis visited Indiana, Brian? Do you remember that Juju Lewis who ended up Colorado, right? He ended up going to play out there, and he's been in that whirlwind of a quarterback room that they're trying to deal with out there in Boulder. Remember when he came and visited Indiana where Colorado was in the mix? I think Auburn was in the mix and maybe another big school in there too. And everybody was like, why is he going to see Indiana? Why would he go see the Hoosiers? He had some friends on the coaching staff and people that he knew. But look how far we've come from a guy like that, a 5-star quarterback taking a visit to basically just say he did, to now Indiana in the mix to land some of their first 5 stars in quite some time. Because I'll remind people, Curt Cignetti has 0 5-stars on this roster, 7 4-stars. The rest are 2 and 3s and a bunch of transfer portal dudes. Look at the path that Indiana has come on from Juju Lewis visiting because he was doing a favor to now Indiana having legitimate conversations with guys like that moving forward.
That's what I mean. Like, I remember last year saying, they don't have a chance, that kid. They actually were in the hunt until the end, which that surprised me anyway. And to be honest, like, who knows what's going to happen with Dion? He's got health problems again. I wish him the best. But Juju transferred, what do you think would be the most likely choice? Probably Indiana. That wouldn't shock me. So they're going to get some more transfers. That's the other part of this. They're going to get some transfers after this season that they wouldn't have even got after last year. Because it's one thing to be a one-hit wonder. This is 2 years in a row they've kicked the crap out of teams. That's the difference.
Yeah.
Indiana isn't a flash in the pan. Now it's proven. Portal and high school ranks. You're going to see guys visit Indiana, sign with Indiana. You're like, oh, I didn't see that coming. And I think it's fascinating because college football is full of come-up stories in a lot of different ways, but it's never been Indiana. Yeah. This is as original a written piece as you're ever going to see.
Well, let's address the biggest storyline in college football this week that I've already talked about several times and will continue to talk about because it is the biggest story in the country. It's Curt Cignetti's name being thrown around for several big-name jobs, the top one being the Penn State Nittany Lions. What sort of a recruiting impact or meteor would that be if Cignetti does leave for Penn State? What have you heard from the Penn State side of things with James Franklin? We've seen tons of decommitments from them already. I mean, are you able to give us any sort of insight on what that situation looks like right now and what that could look like if Cignetti were to take that job?
Here's the problem for Penn State. That is a very proud institution, and they want things done yesterday. I don't blame them. James had them at the same spot for 8 or 9 years. Like, that is flatlined the program as there was, and they spent a lot of money. They just had massive renovations and all that. But they want it done now. It's obvious Indiana's going to the playoff. They don't have time to wait for him, nor does anybody else. I will be flatlined in another way in terms of just being keeled over if he sticks with he would have to go to the pros because the pro timeline is different with the playoffs and all that stuff.
Cignetti would have to go to the pros.
Yeah, because like college, it just doesn't work. National Signing Day is the first Wednesday in December. The portal opens on January 2nd through the 16th. A team like Penn State, which right now is being gutted, that's not going to end well. I had one player from Penn State message me, like, I know one of the guys that's going to get the portal. They're going to be in trouble. They need a guy that can hit the ground running December 1st. Curt just doesn't fit that. So right off the bat, unless they're just willing to literally go into the abyss, and I don't think the people that just stroked that check for James Franklin are going to accept losing next year. Because we're talking about, if you go that route, even with Cignetti, that could be a 4 or 5 win team next year. Because the portal is going to be pretty much done before he's able to go and do anything.
Yeah.
That's not good. If they even win like one game in the playoff, that's a problem. And he wouldn't have his staff together, and it just doesn't work. So could he go to Penn State? Yeah. But the concessions that the boosters and everybody in the admin would have to make in Happy Valley, I can't see how that works. So I've already dismissed that. I think the most likely answer there is Matt Campbell. His dream job is Michigan.
Oh.
He's a Midwest guy. He's from Ohio.
Interesting.
Penn State's the closest thing to that. So that would be the closest thing. But no offense to Iowa State, Rocco's probably gone after this year. That's my guess where that'll end up. But there's a lot of candidates. That's a great job. The timing is terrible for Cignetti. It's absolutely terrible.
And the argument I've had already this week, and again, we'll continue to have, is I just don't think it makes sense. You just explained why it doesn't make sense for Penn State. I don't think it makes sense for Cignetti. Like, you're building a legitimate dynasty for however long that lasts, we'll see. But man, you're beloved in Bloomington. You're building something, and you are the story of college football. We're going to talk in a moment about if Indiana's the best team in the country, and I think there's a legitimate argument that they are. But man, everybody's talking about Indiana. Everybody's talking about Curt Cignetti, and he's making over $8 million a year. Why would you leave that and the recruiting momentum that you've just started to really gain traction on in Indiana? That seems like it would just be starting over from ground zero.
You said it all. You know, if you just wanted to be at Penn State, that's fine. He's a Pennsylvania guy.
Yeah.
But again, it's all timing stuff. It's bad on the end that you just mentioned. And what I talked about prior is worse yet, because he doesn't want to walk into a situation where he doesn't get to dictate his roster. You can't work 2 jobs at once when you're preparing for the college football playoff to play somebody like Georgia, Notre Dame, or Oregon again, or Ohio State, or whatever. You can't, you have to have eyes on the prize, and you'll get slaughtered. He's not going to be able to go help Penn State. So yeah, I don't think he's going to be interested in it because of that. That's what I think. I mean, if Indiana goes to the playoff like we think, finishes 11-1, 12-0, plays Ohio State in the big, they're going to get a high seed. He's going to be focused solely on that. And if Penn State's around after the season, maybe we can talk, but they need somebody December 1st. The timing just doesn't work.
Well, good news is Curt Cignetti is still the head coach of the Indiana Hoosiers, and the debate has started. Is Indiana the best team in college football? We talk about that with Brian Smith of the Portal Podcast here on Locked On Hoosiers as well, right after this on this crossover of Hoosiers and the Portal. This episode of the Portal Podcast and Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Wayfair. The holidays are going to be here before you know it, which is exciting, but getting your home ready for guests and celebrations can feel like a lot. Maybe your serveware needs a little bit of a refresh, or that guest room could use some new bedding in it. Wayfair has everything you need to get your home holiday ready. From Christmas trees and wreaths to bedding, cookware, and outdoor inflatables, it's your one-stop shop for every room in the house. Wayfair makes it easy to personalize your home for the holidays with a huge selection of every style and budget. And with free and easy delivery, even on the big stuff, you can get everything you need without the hassle of huge delivery fees. Look, you can get dining room table sets on Wayfair. You can get a dresser. You can get holiday decorations. Whatever you need, Wayfair's got it. And with free shipping, like it says on the big stuff, anything little or small or big, it doesn't matter. They're going to ship it to you for free. That's why you need to be using Wayfair. Get organized, refreshed, and ready for the holidays for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers and the Portal Podcast is brought to you by Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting on projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. If you need parts fast for a project, Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. And the Part Finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use the promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. All right, final segment here on Locked On Hoosiers and the Portal Podcast. If you're watching or listening on the other show, be sure you follow the other show on YouTube and your podcasting platforms and things with Brian Smith of the Portal Podcast and myself, Jacob Goins of Locked On Hoosiers. And people are starting to talk, Brian, with the win over Oregon last week and what Indiana has done to this point. Are the Hoosiers the best team in college football? I know Ohio State is still out there and they still exist, but no other team in the nation has 2 top 10 wins to this point, Brian. So I toss this to you. Is Indiana the best team in the country?
They're the most deserving based on who they played. Ohio State's more talented. That's probably the best way I would put it. On a neutral field, Ohio State's probably still favored by a touchdown, probably against anybody, because they have Jeremiah Smith. They have the ultimate equalizer.
Who is so good. He's so good.
He would be a guy that would get double teamed in the NFL right now. So It's a problem for college football teams. So outside of Indiana, I mean, the only other teams that Miami maybe could be ranked up there, A&M to a certain degree, but their defense hasn't been as good. I mean, I think it's Miami or Indiana. If it's not Ohio State, it's one of those 3, however you want to put it. But I don't know what Indiana could do now because their schedule does tail off. Mm-hmm. But there's a chance because Miami's schedule isn't that great either down the stretch. It'll be interesting. I think Ohio State, Indiana, and Miami, it's going to get real boring with the poll because none of them play anybody like Michigan. Ohio State played, but they're not the same Michigan. They're in trouble. I think that it's going to be real boring. Indiana or Miami will finish number 2, which is significant because it changes how it works with the seeding. So let's see how that goes. But my guess is Indiana won't surpass Ohio State.
I think Indiana has the best resume right now. I think they're the hottest team in college football, but I do agree that Ohio State is still at that next level, but the Hoosiers have closed the gap. I'm not saying that it's equal. I'm not saying that it is even a hair away, but it is close. And I think when you start comparing the 2 squads, right, you think of Ohio State's defense. I do anyway. You mentioned Jeremiah Smith, and the Hoosiers have good receivers, really good receivers, guys that are going to be playing on Sundays, but Jeremiah Smith is at a different level. But I start comparing like the defenses, and tell me what Ohio State has and has shown defensively that Indiana hasn't shown to this point. especially against the high-powered offenses like Oregon that Indiana went up against. I don't give a ton of credit to Ohio State for slowing down that Texas offense in week one, because a Texas offense has been garbage. It's been horrible. Arch Manning has not been what we thought he was going to be, but I do give the Buckeyes credit for slowing down Washington, because that is a legitimate offense.
Yeah, Damon Williams, for those that haven't seen him, he is a freakazoid. I love watching him play. He's a really good player, but it's just the NFL talent. It's sexier to talk about. Arbel Reese is a very freaky linebacker. Obviously, Caleb Downs is as smart a player as I've ever scouted and been around, and like he's the one that runs the back end of it. Basically, an NFL defense, it's very complex. So it's just the sexier pick, and it's the safer pick. People want to be right at the end of the year. So they're going to bet on the teams with those certain logos on their helmets. So that's going to be the answer. But Indiana's defense fundamentally is probably as good, if not better, than Ohio State. They got a little more length, a little more size, a little more NFL measurables, but the production's very similar.
And man, look at the comparison of the top of the Big Ten versus the top of the SEC, the top of the Big 12, the top of the ACC. Like, the Big Ten is leaps and bounds above all of those conferences, even though right now the SEC has 5 teams ranked in the top 25. Like, I'm not sold on Ole Miss. I'm not sold on A&M. I think Alabama's getting there. Georgia bounced back a week ago when they went on the road and won. You've got LSU knocking on the door, but Brian, I'm taking Indiana, Ohio State, and Oregon against any of those SEC teams. If I have to take somebody to win the national title right now, give me the teams ranked in the Big Ten compared to the teams ranked in the SEC. Let me pull them back up just to make sure I'm not crazy here. I take the teams in the Big Ten to win the national title before I take those teams in the SEC right now.
Yeah, I think if you put the SEC and the Big Ten together, the first 3 teams ranked in a power poll, you could make a strong argument that Oregon, Alabama would be the question, but that's iffy. I would take Oregon because Alabama can't stop the run, which, by the way, makes no sense.
Which is wild. Yeah.
Because they got the horses to do it. I don't know how well they're coached on defense anymore, but otherwise, you're right. Like, the SEC is way deeper. That's not in question. But at the top, Big Ten is legit. And Indiana already went in and just beat Oregon. They're going to get their chance against Ohio State eventually. Obviously, they still play Penn State, although they're not the same team. They won at Iowa. That's a team that just, by the way, Wisconsin, oh boy. Iowa beat them 37-0.
Yeah, not good. That may be the next P4 job to open up, my friend. Not looking good.
Yeah, I did a Wisconsin show yesterday. That was not a fun show. I think Indiana's right there. If it's not Ohio State, I mean, I could see why you would rank Indiana number 1. And again, the Big Ten at the top. This is the heaviest I've ever seen it. And Michigan's not one of them. And Penn State's not one of them. And you got USC that's coming up. If they beat Notre Dame this weekend, that's another one that's kind of a wild card. Big Ten is really unique this season.
Yeah, and I wish that Indiana and Ohio State could play this year in the regular season like they did last year, but those 2 teams are on a collision course for the Big Ten title, which is a separate conversation later in the year on what that looks like, and of course, with comparing it to the college football playoff and things like that. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. We'll worry about a Big Ten championship game when the Hoosiers officially punch their ticket. But there's no doubt they're one of the hottest teams in the nation. Their recruiting is on the rise, and their win against Oregon was historic. He is Brian Smith of the Portal Podcast. Check him out here on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. He's got daily shows for you talking all things recruiting, NIL, and the transfer portal. And I'm Jacob Goins of Locked On Hoosiers, talking all things Indiana football, and we're sprinkling in more basketball as that season is right around the corner as well. Until next time, college football fans, until then, stay safe, and we'll talk to you later.